Hello from nowhere. I'm Kurt the Gardener. We're high atop Mystic Mountain, deep in the forests of nowhere. And I want to welcome you, and I want to say thank you if you've come by. If you want, subscribe, like, hit the bell, and all the iterations and incarnations of those things that everyone tells you to do in the video. All right, with the formalities out of the way. Only if you want to, though. So today I'm going to talk about something. This is a short video. Take it for what it is. All right. Are you awake? I want to kind of go into some just a little bit of details. I've got you a spiritual tip here, all right? I'm going to try to describe what awake actually is in plain, straightforward language, the best that I can. But keep in mind, it's always difficult to put the formless and undescribable into words. So don't conceptualize. Use this as a rough path, all right, a rough guide, all right. Something when you get there, you'll realize it. All right. Don't conceptualize though. Okay. So are you awake? What does it mean to be awake? If the mind has within it concepts of everything there is, and instead of seeing the world as it is, literally with our own eyes, we see everything through the concepts we have identified, labeled, organized, and described everything as. This is what it means to collect. It means to collect concepts of everything as we identify everything. That is why when we come across something we don't know or don't know about, our minds fall into the space or become silent, in other words. And we feel like we're there. We're finally present in that moment. And we get a feeling of relief because God, it's reliefful for that, the mind to finally, the door to finally slam on the room of the mind. It's downright beautiful. It makes us feel great. And then we go looking for that feeling when it wasn't the space itself, it was just the silence and the stillness that we would think of as the space. Because the mind simply doesn't know what to make of that moment that we find ourselves falling into the space of peace. Part of the journey is finding a way through such things as practice to become aware of this space and then expand the space. Therein lies the practice. Through this, you'll find peace or stillness and be awake. All things can be blessings or curses at their own discretions. They are not carved in stone one way or another. It's about context and a lot about intent to this degree. It is said that ignorance is a curse, that ignorance leads to suffering. But I say if you were ignorant to concepts, you would be blessed by definition. You would live in bliss. Ignorance of concepts is bliss. It is not that ignorance itself is bliss, but the ignorance of concepts is bliss. Because if you're ignorant of the concept, it'd be like it didn't exist. And if the concepts and the identifying of the things and turning them into concepts in the conversion process, it's like alchemy in a way. It's failing alchemy in a way. It's bad alchemy. That's what it's like. If you are ignorant of the concept, it wouldn't plague you and lead to the misunderstandings and arguments and conflicts with the ego. Everything in this world gets better with practice. A lot of people are practicing suffering and aren't even aware that they are. For decades, unconsciously, many have practiced suffering. They have gotten so good at it, they have mistakenly identified the suffering state as the normal state of living in life. This is part of the joke to it all, that to stop the suffering, you must shatter the shackles of ignorance, only to drink from the cup of ignorance. 1 minute people are peaceful, then another they become warlike. If we could measure this phenomenon on an oscilloscope, we'd see a sine wave going up and down constantly in cycle. War, then peace, and peace, then war. Conflict, then calm. You get the idea. People are practicing peace. Then comes war on the cycle, and they have to practice that. And by the time the cycle restarts back to peace or war, whichever one came first, people have become good at the opposite. This world, this would be represented as noise or a disruption in the sine wave of the oscilloscope. Never smooth lines in the sine wave, never stable lines in the sine wave, always changing in ever more sloppy flux. Is there really any wonder why the world seems like an insane asylum? People create the resistance and stop the energy from flowing, not by noticing injustice, but by conceptualizing things such as injustice. Then suffering the injustice concept. Then at some point, after tons of suffering and crying, they solve the injustice. This creates noise on our oscilloscope. When we notice injustice, we shouldn't cry about it. Instead, we should solve it. And then there's no suffering to that. The crying will not and does not solve anything, nor does the suffering, nor does the dukkha. It's not hard to solve a problem. It's only hard when our ego and minds get involved in that process, because all they can use is the past, the concepts that we collected and identified as this and that. That's all they can use to tell us what to do. And if we mistake them as someone, as us, or worth listening to begin with, that it's not, it's bad. It's not going to work out. It's going to blow up in your face because they don't know. The ego doesn't know. It's not a they. It compiles all that data and then uses things like the mind to broadcast you solutions and how you should handle it based on how you've handled things before. It doesn't actually know. That's why change is so hard. You got mechanisms. You have mechanisms tripping you up, getting in the way, and you're probably not aware of them or know about them. So it's only hard to solve a problem when our egos and our minds get involved in the problem solving aspect. Okay, that's where you get for a very, very crude, very broad example. If a factory, for example, is dumping all their waste into a creek and that's polluting all the water, and you go to stop them, their ego is going to probably trigger the decision makers. They're going to say, well, that's going to cost money if we actually recycle it correctly. This is free. We're dumping it in the water. And it's going to disrupt that. And I'm afraid of that. So here, I'm going to show you torture. I'm going to torture you until you just fight it, until you say, the hell with the clean drinking water. I want money. That's the ego in people. If they, like I said, if we get the ego to shut up, if we get the ego to calm down, in you know, then the problems stop being hard to solve. Now, I want to say this in closing here. I did say it was a short video, going on 10 minutes here. The world needs poems and stories. The world needs to dream and be driven to inspiration. But the world also needs to be presently awakened to everything as it is. Now, I wanted to tell you this too. A lot of times in a spiritual topics and things, the mind becomes demonized because we conceptualize the mind itself as this thing that tortures me and hurts me. It must be evil. The mind it can be worked where it could be more pleasant. The ego can be reformed. Most of the people say ego death. I think the ego that they had might have died, might have come to an end, but one will take its place because it's not a one. It's a it's a sorry, I've gone blank. It's not a person, it's not a one that you kill or one that dies. It's a it's a mechanism. All right? It's I can't remember. I'm sorry, my mind went blank. It's a function. It's a function, and it can be changed. You're more reforming the ego than you are than it can be killed or that you're killing it or whatever. You're reforming it. All right? Uh, you know, that's what I want to leave you with today, and I want to encourage you. I want you to go out there and I want you to learn something so you can know it, and I want you to study on it and meditate on it and put the focus into it so you can understand it. And then I want you to dig deeper, and I want you to maintain and water and love and care for the seeds within that knowing and understanding so that one day they can bloom into beautiful flowers within you, and they can be realized as you. So if you come and you've stuck with me now going on 12, 11 minutes and so, I want to thank you. And I want to remind you, I'm Kurt the Gardener, and you're always welcome way up here in nowhere. Have a good day.